Hi everyone, number one Marmaduke fan here. I recently picked up a bunch of True Believers and these Timely comics. Timely comics are these $1 things Marvel puts out that let you get the first 3 issues of a recent series, kind of as a little sampler. And for $1, I'll pick it up. After reading all 3 issues of Scarlet Witch, I have to say I can't recommend this, and I'm not going to go buy more. But I did find some, well, there's some roast-worthy moments, and there's some really strong moments. So since it's paced for the trade and all stretched out, I don't feel like there's much point to doing storybook time with you guys. So I figured I'd just flip through it and find what I liked and what I thought didn't work as a matter of artistic composition in these. There are a bunch of artists. So Vanessa Del Rey is the artist of the first issue. The artist and colorist of the second issue is Marco Rudy, and he's got a very painterly style. And then there were 2 artists in the final issue, Steve Dillon and Frank Martin, and they did a pretty clever little thing where Scarlet Witch went through a portal to another world, and that's when the artist changed. But when I talk about the art, I'll tell you what I thought worked and didn't work about that. So we see it. The first one opens with Scarlet Witch with the Avengers and a big whole page devoted to "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live." So immediate impression I got was that this was going to be a bit pretentious, because this is one of those things where it could be interesting, but only if you commit to the idea. In a fantasy world where it's somewhat like the real world and there's Christianity, what would happen if there were people who had superpowers like witchcraft? Would they be understood as being witches from the Bible, or would they be understood as having like mutant powers, and that wouldn't create a big religious war or something? I mean, it's an interesting idea because you can see in real life groups like little Christian subgroups who will say something like Harry Potter or the Lord of the Rings or the Chronicles of Narnia. They'll argue that those promote witchcraft and that those books are evil. So you can definitely imagine in that scenario there being groups of Christianity who would object to people like the Scarlet Witch using her superpowers, but then you'd probably have the majority of people saying, well, I don't think that what she does is the same witchcraft in the Bible. I thought she was a mutant. Her brother's Quicksilver, her daughter's Magneto. Maybe I'm just misremembering from when I read the Avengers comics years ago, but I was always under the impression that she was a mutant. But it seems like in this one, she's actually not only using magic, but they're explicitly connecting her to sort of pagan Mother Earth deity witchcraft proper, hence the Exodus quote. So I just thought, what I'm saying is, don't commit to this sort of, oh, the Bible's got witchcraft in it bit, unless you're ready to commit to that as a key story plot point. But without that, this just feels like they wanted to quote the Bible for the sake of quoting the Bible without it really having any impact on the story in particular. So Vanessa Del Rey, the one thing is the covers are very stylistically different than the interiors. All the covers are this bright red, white, and black graphic art. Reminds me a little of Shepard Fairey's political propaganda posters, and it's strong colors and kind of dynamic, and the space is pretty. But I always feel like there are bits of it that feel a little bit like a posterized photo. Like when the Obama Hope poster became a meme, everyone would just throw a picture in Photoshop, hit the posterize effect, and make their Obama meme poster parody until everyone did it and you kind of got sick of it. So now when I see that sort of posterized look, it looks lazy, even if the total effect looks pretty nice. But the interiors are a lot more painterly with ink brush. And I thought I didn't have any qualms with the color. It's sort of that softer digital color, but the color choices are pretty good and work well with the painterly brush marks. So you see here how there's like ink getting speckled and splattered around here. So there's a huge emphasis on the brush and the tapered effect you get from a brush. I call it the misbehavior of traditional tools. Maybe digital tools are being used here to imitate that effect, but this feels like kind of a Chinese brush paint sort of style, and the softer color I think works with that. Then it transitions to daytime though, and it's like it got weaker. So this I thought was a really strong perspective drawing with some strong pink light and some highlights here, and then out into the daytime. it's like everything went down a notch. So Scarlet Witch kind of has a bit of a squashed face to her. Her outfit's kind of plain. She pops out from the background a little bit. Oh, I had a thought. So her nose is a little weird. And I think what they did to try to make her nose feel less weird was to make it light brown. The idea being, well, if it's black, it'll stick out. But if we make it light brown, it'll be less noticeable. But the problem is a wonky looking nose will look wonky no matter which color you use to represent it. That's why both manga and the old Marvel house style would very much simplify the nose to just suggest all the contours of the nose. If you're drawing a realistic portrait, that stylistic simplification doesn't work because the nose got the nostrils, you've got the flesh on top of the nostrils on the side, you've got the ball at the end of the nose, you've got the bridge. It's a complicated shape. So in realistic portraiture, you're trying to convey all those planes and curves, and it's subtle. But in a comic book, you usually just get down to a little boop boop, and then it doesn't matter if it's a black line. You've simplified it. Boop boop. That's it. It doesn't look bad or weird to your eye because our brain accepts simple shapes and then translates that into a human face inside our brain. So Scarlet Witch is now being a detective. She's no longer an Avenger. She's got a few "you go, girl" moments. So the policeman says, "Got a name, sweetheart?" "Yes, Buttercup, I do. Wanda Maximoff." "You go, girl." He called you sweetheart. So up she goes to investigate the crime scene. And there's this really interesting bit about how there seems to be a economic part to these murder mysteries. That it's only wealthy people who are getting murdered. And she talks about cat sacrifices by witches and French peasants leading up to the French Revolution. And as I read that, I thought, hey, that's interesting. It's sort of like Robinson is suggesting that the French Revolution was satanic in origin, which is that's a pretty conservative take on the French Revolution. Wouldn't surprise me if Robinson's listened to a little Edmund Burke in his life. But even though I saw a few little interesting bits where I was kind of saying, hey, Robinson, are you maybe one of our boys? It's still way too stretched out and way too long a build-up. There was another weird thing about Scarlet Witch where she talked about sort of like she's being linked to the energy of Earth and womankind, this sort of ancient idea of the great mother deity. And what I clicked with that is I've read so much stuff in feminist essays about resurrecting female goddesses as a thing again. And I think they want to do that because they see the traditional Abrahamic religions as patriarchal, and they want a non-patriarchal religion. So they're kind of declaring the old Mother Earth goddesses to be relevant again. And I don't know. I feel like this might be Marvel courting this little kind of woke subgroup that don't really worship something because they believe it's true, but they worship something because they think it's cool and they think it, sticks it to their the patriarchal religious relatives they have to meet at Thanksgiving. So I'm guessing if there are maybe 50 Satanists on planet Earth who actually worship Beelzebub, there's 5,000 woke millennials who say they're Satanists because they think it's cool and they want to be, edgy about it. And same with Mother Earth goddess stuff. I'm sure there's maybe 5 people on planet Earth who worship old Mother Earth goddesses, but most of the people who are interested in that stuff are interested in it because there's this feminist idea that it's feminist approved religion. It's female centric religion. And it's that same thing of let her be a fantasy character. Don't try to court this weird group with this weird. This is almost like all those weirdos who thought Harry Potter was going to make a Satanist. They were right, guys. They were right all along. Oh boy. So Scarlet Witch investigates the scene and she reveals that it's actually the police officer who did the murders, but he was possessed. She pulls the demon out and they have a big old battle. She looks nice. There's some good looking art in some of these action scenes, and she looks like a woman. So yeah, that's not that bad. And then she wraps up and goes home. And I guess my roast of it is this was a lot of build up for kind of a 2 or 3 page fight and lots of talking with Agatha, who I guess is a recently deceased witch. So generally good. not great, but generally good. A little slow. This is something that where if I was reading this when it first came out, I would have said, okay, maybe this could go somewhere cool with this. The second issue has a very different art style, so it's as if they're changing it up every single time. Marco Rudy. Actually, I don't know if this is issues. Yeah, issues 1, 2, and 3. So Marco Rudy is, I think, just traditionally painting. And what I will say about Rudy is he will be brilliant sometimes, and then it's like his brilliance is also what's tripping him up. So sometimes this page, I think, is just a great hook. Simple, one blue overall color to keep it kind of unified and calm, strong shapes, and a few interesting things with the panels, but still really easy to tell what's going on. But then later he'll do all this crazy stuff where there's a million things going on at once, and it's not good comic art and it's not good painting because he's trying to do two things that don't work well together. You know, peanut butter and chocolate, they're two great tastes that taste great together. Renaissance painting and comic books, they're two great tastes. They can taste great together, but if you mix them up wrong, then it's not a great mix. Then it's I don't know. I'm thinking of Paper Mario or something where you cook something and it ends up giving you the wah wah. You didn't mix your ingredients right in some of the pages for this. So there's this Minotaur killing people, and immediately we start seeing kind of the doing a bit with cool, crazy panel compositions. And I think this page is a good illustration of how there's strengths to that and there's weaknesses to that. So this is pretty dope. You know, the eyes, then just a big red shape for the danger, and, you know, white, but then blood over that. So it ends up being like this build, you know, blue, 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 red, white, and blood splatters. But look at this. So curves, you know, this pushes my eye down here, but it also pushes my eye up here, and then there's a big red arrow pushing me over here. So which way am I supposed to read? Am I supposed to go down here? Am I supposed to go over here and then down here? So it's composition. The composition is fighting you reading this as a comic book. If this were a painting on a wall, you'd say, oh, that's pretty cool, but you're actually supposed to read it this way and read it this way. These were designed as two separate pages. Then when they got put together, it creates more confusion. That's a dope silhouette of the Minotaur. That is strong. I'll throw some respect on that. And then once we get into daylight, then it's a lot more painterly, meaning you can see the brush strokes and the buildup of it. And Scarlet Witch goes to meet the ancient Greek goddess of witches. And here he's still doing a thing with the bits because there's a slight curve to the panels going down and a really strong image across the top to tell us this is a two-page spread. Look at this. This is where it's just getting way too in its own business, way too avant-garde. So on one hand, you could say, well, maybe this is the artist trying to liven up all this talky scenes with some cool art, but it's barely legible. Over here, down here, up here, oh, bonky. So I just kind of gave up, and plus the dialogue is boring, and it's lots and lots of stuff of Scarlet Witch and the goddess talking about magic in the world. So it's a dully paced issue where the art is trying to be dynamic, but nothing's really working together. And then this starts happening. This is something I feel like they could have fixed with just a little bit of an editor rewriting it, because this is supposed to be Hetica, or whatever the Greek goddess's name is. She's supposed to be explaining how magic is dying in the world. But so if there was something like, she said, oh, okay, Scarlet Witch, it would take too long to tell you. Let me show you with my magic vision the state of magic in the world. And then I would accept this as, oh, okay, this is a cool thing where we're experiencing the world in sort of a crazy magic vision like Scarlet Witch might. There's nothing like that. This is just her talking. And then the artist is just doing this completely bonkers LSD thing out of the blue. Okay, this is a riff on Picasso's Minotaur from Guernica. And I just feel like, oh, let's do lots of crazy art. I'll throw in Picasso's Guernica. I'll throw in rainbow tears of emotional sadness, and too much, too self-important. And then back to the stuff I really like. This is a great page. The panels are strong white brush strokes. Blue, but she's really discernible, and a shape outlining her. Black, the creature's eyes visible. A establishing shot of the scenery with a range from light blue to dark blue. A strong red shape, so she pops forward. down here, and then the only thing that's different is this solid black and white thing at the center, and it works compositionally here because everything builds down to this, and then it pops forward. Silent, 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 word. This is a fantastic page. This is a great page, but not much lives up to that. This is a decent 2-page spread, so strong single image like a samurai showdown setting this up. There's a little confusion here where you could get lost and go over here, but the words kind of help you come down here and then go that way. So the words sort of saved it. It looks cool as a painting, but as a comic without the art, you could get really confused by which way you're supposed to go here. And I'm not sure, without breaking out like my sketchbook and doing a thumbnail sketch of this whole page, I'm not sure how I would fix it. So I'm just glad the words helped set this up in the talking. Then it gets into the fight, and now we're back to this artist's strength also being this artist's weakness. Inventive panels with lots of painterly style added to it, but also confusion. This looks like something that should just be in the abstract 101 painting class, and you turn this in as your abstract composition, and people look at it and say, yeah, that's nice, some cool shapes going on, but what's it doing? I think once again, these were designed as single pages. Put them together in 2 pages. They kind of fit together, like this looks like it's her cape currying up here, but I clearly this wasn't intended to be a 2-page spread, and something needed to be done to anticipate that. Maybe even just like a white box containing the single pages so that we don't have all this bleed over effect. These pages, I'm going to say, this is a similar riff on what he did before, where it was blue at the top going down to a black and white page, and this is black and white at the top, down to blue, and then ending with a realistic portrait. I'm going to skip that previous page because this is the one I want to kind of roast. So if I were hanging this on my wall with no word balloons on it, well, I'd say, well, I don't think I want to hang this on my wall because it's too disorganized and there's no harmony. Black, white, and red. Grayscale painting, warm watercolor, cool watercolor, light ghostly drawing, charcoaly drawing. What do you want to draw? And it's not like a bit where grayscale is used symbolically for sadness and black and white is used symbolically for her mental image of herself or something. It's just artistic bits for the sake of doing artistic bits. So it I wouldn't like it as a painting all by itself, and I hate it as comic art because you try to read that. So I do dig a lot of this. There are some great action build-up scenes here with some great colors. So I don't know why the artist went from this to this. This is confusing. This is unified. This is strong. This is doing a clever bit, but giving us a framing device. Big blue shape at top, big red shape at bottom to help us separate things and understand it. This is all over the place. Her hair, I guess, are the comic panels. Yeah. All right. And then it sets up the bad guy for the next issue. So issue 3. I thought the bad guy was Black Adam. Apparently he's sort of some emerald sorcerer, Irish guy who is hunting down a lot of people he hates, and this could be a thesis all by itself. On the Diversity in Comics channel, he's talked about comedy being something you have on credit. If you tell a good joke, we'll give you a little credit for a bad joke until you tell a couple more good jokes. But if you tell a whole bunch of bad jokes and then tell an okay joke, you've already set the audience up in the mindset to not laugh and be annoyed. So this isn't about humor, this is about impact in storytelling. This opens with the bad guy brutally murdering this innocent guy as he begs for his life. This is another moment where I think that maybe Robinson might low-key be an anti-SJW, because the villain is saying, I'm killing every single descendant of the ancient Irish wizards who imprisoned me. I've killed tens of thousands of people. They all say I'm innocent. I didn't do anything wrong, but I blame you all for what your ancestors did. Man, that feels like someone is trying to red pill some kids who think that the sins of your great grandparents in America, that you personally as an individual are responsible for every bad thing done 100 to 1,000 years ago by your ancestors. So even though I feel like Robinson has some good morality informing the subtext of some of his stories, like the French Revolution is seen as evil and destructive of life, killing people because of something that their ancestors did to you, that's portrayed as wicked. I do not like this whole scene, and I do not like his pacing, because I don't like seeing innocent people murdered, and you need to build up credit to earn a scene like that. If I had read a whole bunch of books with Wanda being heroic and opposing this villain, and then he killed someone, and the point of the scene was, wow, he's such an evil guy, he's so cruel, he's so inhuman, then that would work, because I would have a feel for, this sort of good morality. I'd feel like the total effect of the story would be heroism and heroic ideas versus evil, good versus evil. Therefore, I'd kind of contextualize the evil as, yes, that was evil, that was terrible, but I'd see it as part of a larger story where good is combating evil. This just hits you with this horribly evil murder right in your face, right at the beginning, before we even see our hero. And it just feels like shock value. Like he sends this guy up into space, and we see a big close-up shot of him crying as he flies off into space. This is an innocent human being. And even if you want to establish this guy as a villain, be considerate of the total effect of the story and where to put something like this. This would work if I had a story that of Scarlet Witch versus this guy, where I could read him as a villain in opposition to Scarlet Witch. This is the opening scene, whapping you with it before Scarlet Witch even shows up. Maybe 10 issues down the road, she's finally going to meet this guy and find him. But all this is just sort of a dark and ugly moment, almost in isolation. Because then after that, then it's off to, kind of silly Billy, Scarlet Witch. She's got her nice little Carmen Sandiego outfit on, and she's going to investigate some weird magic stuff. This is okay kind of indie art. The one thought I had is the lips. The lips are almost Frank Millerish in how they're drawn, with a thick outline along the outside and wrinkles on the inside. And the thing I'm thinking about is, if you look at your lips in a mirror, you do not have black lines around your lips. You know where your lips are because of their shape and their colored, the color of the flesh of your lips. The only place where you really have a black line at all on your face is that little line in between the lips where they close, because no light can get in there, which is why manga artists will either just draw a line without any indication of the lips, or Marvel, they used to have like a solid black shape for the top lip, because the top lip is in shadow, and if it's solid black and white color, you read it differently. It reads more as what to compare it with. Black and white, really solid black and white art, it reads almost as like words on the page, where your brain looks at it and then you separate it and you understand a human face. But a lot of sketchy lines, that reads as shading, and you start looking for all the subtlety and the contours of the human face. So kind of be careful when you go into shading mode, because when we look at some of these lips, I think they're too harsh because there's a black outline all the way around. I would have fixed this by having the indication of the lips, maybe like a little line at the bottom for the lips, a little line going up to indicate the top of the lips. Looks like the others. No, it's a full outline going all the way around. And some of the lips I noticed were more kind of harsh and separated from the face than others, but generally okay. She meets some zombies. She does some magic stuff. I mean, part of the thing about this character is she used to wear this costume with this great big red pointy mask, and she would be smoking hot, and then she'd be surrounded by all these average dudes, so she would stand out and jump off the page. Just having her in a crazy superhero girl outfit would have helped out, even if she was doing a bit where she's trying to lay low. Have her transform into her crazy superhero outfit. There's the face where I really didn't like the lips in comparison to the rest of the face. I feel like everything was drawn, maybe focusing on one thing at a time, but didn't pull out and see how that's a little bit ghoulish compared to the total effect of everything else. So here's where they change artists. She walks into the portal and walks out the other portal, and the new artist takes over. And I feel like this was a missed opportunity, because she ends up walking into herself, and they're not doing a bit where there's like a mirror and there's this beautiful relation where one really relates to the other. These don't quite relate to one another nicely. So they either should have gone whole hog and done a bit where they said to the two artists, okay, we want your two images to line up beautifully, so they create a total effect, like she's walking into herself or something, or that one would flow into the other. That would have been real cool, like a collaborative 2-page spread, and then you transition to the second artist. Or they should have told the second artist, don't do this pose, do something where she's facing that same way or she's small, and not, I don't know, this is just an unharmonious relation of two images. My mind wants these to go together, but they don't go together. And then out she comes, and it's suddenly a very painterly style in this magical world, and she meets a medieval Scarlet Witch. And I can't say I'm that intrigued to go find out what happens next. So this one is okay, and I am okay having paid $1 for this to get a sample of these books. I'm not interested in going out and paying $4 an issue for the rest of it. And I definitely got some really strong examples of some artists and some examples of, I think, very strong artists doing weak things because they were mixing up the artiness of their craft with the harmony and the simplicity of laying out a comic book page so that you can read it. That a painting is one thing, a comic book page is another thing. Artists make comic book pages, but you have to be very cognizant of how a comic book page works when you're making it and how it's different than just an abstract painting. And this is a great example of that. I'm #1 Marmaduke fan. Why don't you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you guys later.